You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly.
Good morning, everyone. This is Debbie Royce, Empire State Development's Corporate Secretary. I'd like to welcome everyone to this morning's meeting, and before we formally begin, I would ask everyone to please mute your lines unless you're speaking. As we have our directors joining by video today, we'll do a quick roll call for the benefit of those joining us by phone before we get started. Chair Kevin Law.
Here.
Commissioner of the Department of Economic Development, Hope Knight.
Here.
Hilda Rosario Escher. Hilda, I think you're muted, but we'll note that you're here.
Here.
Thanks so
I'm
much.
sorry.
That's okay, thank you. Sherry Gleed.
Here.
Rob Simpson.
Here.
John Wang.
Here.
And Benson Martin, designee for the Superintendent of New York State Department of Financial Services, Adrian Harris.
Here.
Thanks so much, everybody, for joining today. And Chair Law, you're ready to begin.
Good morning. And Debbie, did Michael Rosen join us?
I don't see him on yet, but
Okay. We'll acknowledge him when he joins.
Sure.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. I now would like to call to order the meeting of the directors of the New York State Urban Development Corporation, doing business as the Empire State Development, for this Thursday, July 21st, 2022. I'd please ask everybody to keep their phones on mute or mute your audio until you are ready to speak. And anyone wishing to speak, please be sure to state your name before you begin so you can be identified for the folks joining us by teleconference today. I'd like to note for the record that in accordance with current legislation, this meeting is being conducted by video and teleconference. I will also note for the record that the public was given the opportunity to comment on the agenda items by submitting their written comments by noon yesterday. We received approximately 7 comments in relation to agenda item 6A, related to the World Trade Center site building number 5. And we received approximately 110 comments in connection with agenda item 7A, and that was related to the Penn Station area civic and land use improvement project. And those comments were distributed to all the directors and have also been posted online at this meeting's ESD website page. As always, the directors have received the written materials in advance of today's meeting and are free to ask any questions at any time during the presentation. At this time, I would like to ask whether any directors have any potential conflict of interest with respect to any items on the agenda. And if so, if you can make the appropriate disclosure on the record, and then I will remind you to recuse yourself from any discussion or vote with regard to such item or items. I will start that section. I am going to recuse myself from item 4 related to the Life Sciences Initiative Fund. There are 3 different awards being awarded under that program. One is to the SUNY Foundation on behalf of Stony Brook University. I am the chairman of the Stony Brook University Council. I have not participated in any of the discussions related to that item, and I will recuse myself from that matter later today. Do any other directors have any other items they wish to identify and recuse themselves from?
Yeah, Chairman-in-law, this is Rob Simpson. I'll recuse myself from the item Center State CEO, Genius New York competition, item years 6 through 10.
Good. Thank you, Rob. Any other? Okay, let that both mine and Rob's recusals be noted for the record. I'd also like to state that the minutes from our last meeting have still not been completed by our stenographer, but we expect them soon, and we will approve them as well as today's minutes at our next meeting. So now we'll go right to the agenda, and I will ask Ed Hamilton, he's ESD's Executive Vice President of Administration, to present our first agenda item relating to the appointment of officers of the corporation. Ed?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Good morning, and good morning to the board. Today I'll present 2 officers for consideration, and then I'll ask the board for approval after discussing both of them. You'll note that for both that there is more information in your board packet, but I just wanted to highlight a few notes. One, it's proposed that Vincent Esposito be appointed as a Senior Vice President for Regional Economic Development. Mr. Esposito's appointment would be effective May 26th, 2022. Vinny will be the SVP for Regional Economic Development, will oversee all the regional directors and all aspects of economic development activities at the regional offices. He'll coordinate and collaborate with our commissioner, the governor's office, and also with the regional councils. Vinny's been a regional director in the Finger Lakes region for many years. He's been a key player for advancing many upstate New York initiatives. He's really a champion of the REDC process, and also really recognizes the importance of ESD's regionally focused economic growth strategy. Second, I propose that Raymond Orlando be appointed as the Chief Financial Officer. His appointment would be effective as of June 21st, 2022. As a CFO, Raymond will oversee the financial aspects of ESD, its subsidiaries, the Job Development Authority, and local development corporations. He'll directly manage the departments of the Controller, Contract Administration, Project Finance, Portfolio Management, Treasury. He'll also oversee all of ESD's Treasury activities, including analysis, structure, and pricing for bond sales. Ray joins ESD from Nassau County. He has extensive government financial experience. He worked as a CFO in the New York City Department of Education and had many years with the New York City Office of Management and Budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. 2 terrific appointees, very well qualified, if I may add. Are there any questions or comments from the directors?
I just have to say that Vinny Esposito has done an excellent job with the Finger Lakes Economic Development Council, and that promotion is very well deserved.
Very good. Thank you, Hilda. I'll take those comments in the form of a motion. And is there a second? By Sherry. We have not received any comments from the public with regard to this item. And so there's a motion and a second. All in favor of the appointments of Ray Orlando and Vinny Esposito to their respective positions that Ed shared with us, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No response. Thank you. The motion carries. Next up is David Whipple. David is our industry director from our strategic business division, and he will present an item relating to the Fast New York Shovel Ready Grant Program. David?
Hi, thank you very much and good morning. The directors are requested to authorize program guidelines and to authorize taking related actions, and in doing so, create the focused attraction of Shovel Ready Tracks, or Fast New York program. This program has been championed by Governor Hochul and was announced in the end of February. For a little bit of background, shovel-ready sites are land areas that have been prepared for future construction. The necessary activities to bring a site to shovel readiness have a wide are wide in variety across land uses, but generally include addressing planning, permitting, and infrastructure issues. And the grant program will be used to provide financial assistance to eligible entities for the purpose of preparing and developing shovel-ready sites across New York. Shovel-ready sites will attract high-tech manufacturing, especially semiconductor manufacturing, as well as research and development, back office, warehousing, distribution, and logistics. Eligible projects will include infrastructure grants to improve shovel readiness with water infrastructure, sewer, roads, power lines, electrical substation, gas lines, as well as related pre-development planning and reviews and engineering. ESD plans to allocate awards on a rolling basis until funding is exhausted. This program is for up to $200 million and up to 10% of that will be allocated for working capital grants to address the pre-development studies. And so again, today's request is to is for authorization to adopt the guidelines and authorization to take related actions. I just want to note that today's board action does not approve any specific projects. Following today's approval, ESD will will work on and then begin accepting program applications, and any approved projects will be subject to all required project approvals as they move forward. I will now take any questions that the directors may have.
Great. Well, thank you, David. Let the record reflect first that Michael Rosen, Director Michael Rosen, has joined us. Also, David, am I correct? I know Governor Hochul is working in partnership with U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer, who's working on federal legislation to help the United States get more of our own semiconductor businesses. And is it accurate to say that by approving this program will help show the feds that we have skin in the game and will hopefully allow New York to attract federal monies if those efforts are successful?
Yes, that's accurate. And this program certainly does have a focus on semiconductor manufacturing, although it is open to other industries as well. But yes, absolutely.
Great. That's great to hear. And so important that we have criteria and guidelines. So thank you for that. Any questions or comments from other directors? We have not received any comments from the public with regard to this item. I will move this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Now continuing with our agenda, I'd like to hand it over to our President and CEO, Hope Knight, for her President's report. Hope?
Thank you, Kevin, and good morning, directors. I hope everybody's having a safe and enjoyable summer. It's been a few short weeks since our last meeting, but these continue to be busy times at ESD, and there's a lot on the agenda today. With that in mind, for this month's report, I'd like to share some of the projects that have been celebrated since we last met. Each project was supported with funding through ESD, and each one furthers the agency's overarching goal of creating sustainable economic growth in communities across New York State. In the Mohawk Valley, we marked the completion of the $13 million Sky Dome in Oneida County. This is the nation's largest indoor drone testing center. It was one of the more unique ribbon cutting events I've attended, as the ceremonial ribbon was lifted and held by 2 drones. The former airplane hangar will offer year-round testing facilities for advanced drone technologies, which is an industry focus in the Mohawk Valley strategic plan. We also celebrated the completion of the new Children's Museum at Saratoga in the Capital Region. The museum relocated to Saratoga Spa State Park and is fully accessible with STEM learning exhibits, plus popular, interactive, and hands-on attractions. The museum will appeal to both residents and visitors alike. It's a great year-round, family-friendly attraction in the heart of Saratoga Springs, which relies so heavily on seasonal tourism. This $3+ million project was supported by a $600,000 grant, but the smiles on the faces of the kids seeing the museum for the first time were priceless. And finally, it was a privilege to attend the ribbon cutting for the Greater Nexus in downtown Jamaica. This project was very personal to me. As you all know, prior to my coming to ESD, I led the Greater Jamaica Development Corporation and was involved in the planning and execution of this project. It was great to see the results from all the hard work of the team. Greater Nexus is a $11 million co-working space supported through the DRI. Greater Jamaica now owns the real estate in which the co-working space is located. It offers 10,000 square feet of affordable and flexible workspace for up to 100 people, plus conference rooms and training space. Governor Hochul was there for the ribbon cutting, just as she was there for the groundbreaking as Lieutenant Governor. And a project like this can spark new investments and generate new interest and traffic in a community which is at the heart of our placemaking efforts. The event was an opportunity to launch the latest DRI round and the New York Forward program with our colleagues from the Department of State. It was truly a full circle moment for me, and I was grateful for the opportunity to see its completion. In closing, our dedicated team across the state continues to support sustainable and inclusive economic growth. The work they do is creating jobs, generating investments, and supporting community development. To my colleagues at ESD, I'm grateful for your efforts and hope that you too are having a safe and enjoyable summer. Make sure you're able to take some time off to enjoy the season and maybe plan a New York State getaway of your own. And with that, I conclude my report.
Well, thank you very much, Hope. Does anybody have any comments or questions for Hope? Hearing none, I'd like to just say I was up at ESD's offices yesterday for most of the day, and Hope, you've done a great job building a great team. Everybody up there is polite, professional, and knowledgeable, and that type of culture starts at the top. And so you're doing a great job, and it was a pleasure to be part of your team and with your team up there yesterday.
Thank you.
Okay, we are now going to go to the project section of today's agenda. Regional directors and program staff are on the line with us to present their items, and all the written materials for all these projects were shared with the board directors ahead of time before this meeting. We're going to start in Western New York with our regional director, Karen Utz. And Karen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning. The directors are requested to approve a $1,818,440 grant from the Empire State Economic Development Fund to Fresenius Kabi USA LLC for a portion of equipment and machinery costs associated with the $27.3 million expansion project at its Grand Island facility in Erie County. ESD funding was offered to the company to secure its commitment to installing new equipment and retaining its Western New York workforce, preventing the investment and transfer of jobs to the company's facilities in North Carolina or Illinois. Fresenius Kabi is a global pharmaceutical company specializing in products and services for critical care and chronically ill patients. Through this project, the company renovated a vacant 25,000 square foot building on site for use in expanding a production line for Astrenium, an injectable antibiotic to treat infections. With this investment, the company, one of the largest health and life sciences companies in Western New York, was able to retain its 880-person workforce. This new production capacity and facility allows the company to remain cost competitive in the market. The project was completed in January 2020, and per the financial terms, has now met the threshold for the first disbursement. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, Kim? Hearing none, Karen, thank you for that presentation. We have not received any comments from the public with regard to this item, and so I will now entertain a motion for approval.
So moved,
And
Benson.
a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Thank you, Karen. Next, Jim Fail, the Regional Director of our Central New York region, will now present an item from that region.
Thank you. Good morning. The board is going to be asked to approve a grant for Center State Corporation of Economic Opportunity. This is going to be a $24,998,099 URI grant to help fund a business competition program that we have here in Central New York called Genius New York. This business program is focused mainly on unmanned aerial systems development as we continue to build out the drone-related infrastructure within the region. The prize money is of this money, $3 million is done annually, and $1.75 million that goes to programming and operation costs. And I'd be glad to entertain any questions.
Great, thank you, Jim. We know, I'll note that this is the item that Rob Simpson is recusing himself from. We have not received any questions or comments from the public. Are there any questions from any of the directors? Hearing none, I will move this. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Note Rob Simpson's recusal and abstention. The motion carries. And so I would, we'll move on now to the next item from Allison Madmoon from our Mohawk Valley region. She will present an item from this area.
Good morning, Chairman. The directors are being asked to approve a grant of up to $380,000 from the Regional Council Capital Fund to the Kelberman Center to be used for a portion of the cost to demolish a dilapidated building and construct a 73,000 square foot mixed-use affordable supportive housing project in the city of Utica. The incentive proposal was accepted by the grantee in December of 2021. The Kelberman Center is a regional center for excellence for individuals with autism spectrum disorder. The center has provided certified and non-certified self-directed housing solutions to people with autism throughout Central New York and the Mohawk Valley. The Kelberman at Sunset project removed a blighted vacant building and provided 60 affordable apartments marketed as workforce housing opportunities for individuals and small families. The project was also awarded rental assistance from the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities for 12 units to be targeted to individuals with developmental disabilities. The first floor of the new facility will include 6,800 square feet of commercial space which houses the Kelberman Center's offices and community operations. This location provides access to the entire community by bringing nonprofit organizations together to develop collaborative models of community inclusion and training, including after-school, evening, and weekend programming. The CFA capital grant of $380,000 is 2% of the total project cost of $19,440,000. The project is complete, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
And thank you, Allison. I'll just ask everybody, if you're not speaking, make sure your phones are muted. Do any of the directors have any questions for Allison? We have not received any comments from the public with regard to this item. So I'll now entertain a motion for approval.
So moved,
Move.
Benson.
Moved and second. Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Continuing on, we have the Market New York Grant Program item, which will be presented by Kelly Baccarizzo, and she is our Director of the Tourism Grant Program with our I Love New York team. Kelly?
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and good morning, Commissioner, and to the board. The Market New York program has 3 projects for your consideration today. The first is the New York Shakespeare Festival. New York Shakespeare Festival is a New York City-based not-for-profit with a mission to make New York State an international tourist draw and a consistent economic driver for the New York City region. New York Shakespeare Festival was awarded a working capital marketing grant of $278,013 in December 2021 under Round 11 of the Regional Economic Development Council. New York Shakespeare Festival will use the grant funds to promote free Shakespeare in the Park, a beloved New York City cultural tradition, through a strategic marketing initiative designed to draw out-of-state visitors to the renowned Delacorte Theater in Central Park and to the overall New York City region. The IP has already been executed, and the grantee is underway getting this project initiated. Our second project is the New York State Equal Rights Heritage Center. The City of Auburn is a central New York-based municipality with a mission to grow and promote cultural heritage tourism as a way of building welcoming and connected world-class communities. The City of Auburn was awarded a working capital marketing grant of $300,000 in December 21 under Round 11 of the Regional Economic Development Council. The City of Auburn will use the grant funds to develop and implement marketing strategies, in addition to creating destination events to promote and encourage visitation to the new New York State Equal Rights Heritage Center in Auburn and to the overall central New York region. An IP has already been executed, and the grantee is also underway getting this project initiated. And our last project today for your consideration is the Lighthouse Landing Edge on Hudson Waterfront. Lighthouse Landing Communities LLC is a mid-Hudson-based real estate development company whose purpose is to develop and improve the 68 acres of riverfront land that was formerly the General Motors facility in the village of Sleepy Hollow. Lighthouse Landing Communities was awarded $500,000 capital grant under Round 9 of the Regional Economic Development Council. Lighthouse Landing Communities, together with the village of Sleepy Hollow, will use the grant funds to pay for a portion of construction, site work, and materials totaling $3.49 million to create a new 6-acre riverfront public space that will feature a shoreline promenade, miles of pedestrian paths and bike trails, and river sports opportunities. As a note, the space will be deeded to the village of Sleepy Hollow in perpetuity and will serve as a gateway to the majestic Hudson Valley. The village of Sleepy Hollow has confirmed that they will assume the responsibility for the upkeep of the park. This project was completed in May of 2022. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them today.
Hey, Kelly, just a generic question. Do all of the projects that go through the Market New York grant program, do they go through the REDC CFA process, or can applicants apply directly to your program?
It is directly through the CFA REDC process. We don't have a direct access at this time.
Got it. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Do any other directors have any questions or comments? We have not received any comments from the public with regard to this item, and so I will move them. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next, we have the Restore New York Communities capital grant item, which will be presented by Simone Bethune, and she is our Senior Project Manager and Coordinator of Projects with our Loan and Grants team. Simone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to everyone. We are requesting director's approval for a Round 4 Restore New York grant in the amount of $2 million to the City of Yonkers for rehabilitation of the Wheeler Block buildings, 3 adjacent historic buildings in the heart of downtown Yonkers. In September 2016, the city's Restore New York application was reviewed, scored, and subsequently approved as constituting a coherent and cohesive project that aligns with the goals of the program, as it is a rehabilitation of a vacant, obsolete, or surplus structure. The funding was included in the 2016-2017 New York State budget, and ESD sent the city an award letter on February 13, 2017. The rehabilitation of the Wheeler Block buildings is a priority for Yonkers, as the structures have sat vacant for 3 decades. The project will see the buildings transformed into a mixed-use redevelopment of 36 housing units and 5 commercial storefronts for a total investment of approximately $11.5 million. The project will also complement 2 nearby previous Restore New York projects, the renovation of a former library into 22 loft apartments and the Phillips Manor district, which created 14 housing units and rehabilitated 7 storefronts. This project is expected to be complete in December 2023, and because the city has set aside its obligations under the approved application, ESD is recommending the board authorize release funds for this project.
Great. Thank you, Simone. I know Governor Hochul put a lot more money in the budget this year for this Restore New York program. Are we marketing and promoting this to all the municipalities across the state to make sure that they're aware of the program and the new monies that have been allocated for it this year?
Yes, the guidelines have been published, and we've already started receiving inquiries from the municipalities.
Great. It sounds like a terrific program, and we should be promoting it to all of our municipal partners. I'd like to remind everyone, please state your name before speaking. Are there any questions or comments for Simone? We have not received any comments from the public with regard to this item either. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved, Benson.
In a second? Second. Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you, Simone. Next up on the agenda is the at the direction of grant item, which will also be presented by Simone Bethune. Simone?
Okay, thank you. We're requesting director's approval of a $300,000 local assistance award to the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce at the direction of the New York State Senate Finance Committee under the fiscal year 2021-2022 New York State budget. Empire State Development sent the Brooklyn Chamber an invitation to apply letter, and the organization submitted an application to ESD in April 2022. The application was subsequently reviewed and approved to move forward in June. Funding provided under this grant will support technical assistance in the form of one-on-one counseling and training to at least 50 businesses, including assistance with microloan lending and other finance programs as part of the Restart Brooklyn Support and Recovery Initiative. The Restart Brooklyn program will engage both struggling and former business owners to restart and regrow their small businesses. Additionally, the program will nurture, grow, and support new post-COVID-19 entrepreneurship in Brooklyn with the existing Brooklyn Chamber services such as the microlending and finance programs, the MWBE certification and procurement programs, and the Shop Local initiative. The Brooklyn Chamber sources candidates for this program from its email list of small business owners, as well as members who have expressed interest in grants and loans through the New York City Small Business Resource Network. The project, which has already assisted up to 50 businesses with access to financial programs that allow them to continue operating, will be complete in December 2022. And the grantee has initiated the project and met the required milestones to be eligible to seek board approval, so we are requesting the board's authorization to make this grant. And I can take any questions.
Thank you. Simone, just educate me and maybe some of the other directors. When we have so many programs at at ESD, some come through the REDC and some through all the other great programs that ESD run. But when a project is maybe sort of directly funded from the legislature and doesn't emanate directly out of ESD, but we administer it, we call them at the direction of projects.
That's correct. So these are commitments listed in the budget that originate from the governor, the assembly, or the Senate.
Got it.
We are named to administer the funds.
Good. Yeah, thanks for that education. Appreciate it. Are there any comments, any other comments or questions from the directors for Simone? Hearing none, I'll move this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Maria Mitchell, the Senior Vice President of Life Sciences, will now present an item related to the Life Sciences Initiative Fund for our consideration. And this is the item that I said I would abstain and recuse myself from. So I'll ask Hilda to lead the motion and the second on this item. Maria?
Yes, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Kevin. We are seeking the director's approval for 3 entrepreneurial development grants of up to $500,000 each for Cornell University, Rochester Institute of Technology, and the Research Foundation of the State of New York on behalf of Stony Brook University. The Life Science Entrepreneur Development Grant awards up to $550,000 to New York graduate schools of business to work in collaboration with medical schools or graduate programs in the life sciences. The schools will develop and implement either an MBA concentration or a certificate program in life science entrepreneurship. This grant program is designed to address the lack of life science entrepreneurial talent needed to advance startups in New York. The terms of these grants, 5 years, during which the total investment for these projects is $4.8 million. Thank you very much and be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Maria. There were no comments from the public with regard to this item.
Motion for approval.
Second,
So
Rob
moved,
Simpson.
Benson.
All in favor?
All in favors.
Any opposed? Let the record reflect my abstention. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Hilda.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, we have Jonathan Green. He is our Senior Director in our New York Ventures Group, and he will present an investment item. Jonathan, when you're ready.
Thanks, everyone, and good morning. New York Ventures is requesting an investment of up to $1 million into a $15 million Series B funding round into ZetaGen. ZetaGen is a clinical stage biopharmaceutical company commercializing a novel therapy that treats metastatic bone cancers while also promoting bone regrowth for osteologic interventions. The company has developed a patented treatment and delivery mechanism that utilizes naloxone hydrochloride, which actually stops bone lesions from cancer cells growing, reducing patient discomfort and stimulating bone regrowth. ZetaGen is also developing a suite of products focused on bone regrowth alone for orthopedic applications, including a bone void filler and a spinal fusion material. The company was founded by former researchers from Upstate Medical University. They have licensed that expanded the portfolio mechanisms of action. ZetaGen is based in the Central New York Biotech Accelerator in Syracuse, employing 4 researchers in that location and plans to add additional employees in 2022 and 2023. As a part of the due diligence process, New York Ventures staff and an external investment advisory committee evaluated the company's business plan and growth prospects, as well as the terms of the investment outlined in the memorandum. As a result of this analysis, we believe that this is a strong market opportunity and the company has significant growth potential in New York State, and therefore warrants investment by New York Ventures, and therefore we recommend its approval. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Jonathan. Sounds like an exciting company. Do any directors have any comments or questions for Jonathan? Hearing none, we have not received any comments from the public with regard to this item. I will now entertain a motion for approval.
So moved, Benson.
Is there a second? There's a second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions or no votes? No. So that motion carries. Thank you. Next up, Toby G.I. Yasimi. the Assistant Vice President of Real Estate and Community Relations, will now present an item related to the World Trade Center Memorial and Cultural Program Land Use Improvement and Civic Project for our consideration. As I mentioned earlier, we received 7 comments from the public on this agenda item, which were provided to the directors and are posted online to this meeting's ESD website page. Toby, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Chairman Law. Thank you, Directors. Today you're requested to take action on the World Trade Center Site 5 development project related to the start of the public review process. The materials describe further modifications to the general project plan for zoning overrides needed for the building described in the proposed draft mixed-use design guidelines, which were provided for review, authorization to receive the site from LMDC, which would hold title during the term of the proposed long-term ground lease to the conditionally designated developer, consideration of the proposed terms of an initial agreement with other project sponsors and the conditionally designated developer and other proposed project documents, and the necessary authorization to hold the required public hearings on the project. Before further describing these actions, I'd like to offer some helpful background information. The general project plan under consideration today was originally adopted by the Lower Manhattan Development Corp., LMDC, a subsidiary of ESD, in 2004 to provide for memorial and cultural uses as well as commercial redevelopment of the World Trade Center after the 9/11 attacks. The plan provided for 5 commercial towers, public open space, and a performing arts center surrounding the memorial and memorial museum. The 2004 World Trade Center General Project Plan allowed for commercial and/or hotel use on Site 5. Site 5, which is located at 130 Liberty Street, is the southernmost site of the World Trade Center campus and the location of the former Deutsche Bank building, which was severely damaged on 9/11. LMDC used HUD Community Development Block Grant funds to acquire, remediate, and clear Site 5. In 2006, the Port Authority and LMDC entered into a memorandum of understanding by which LMDC would swap 130 and 140 Liberty Street, including Site 5, with the Port Authority for property it owns at the center of the campus to enable the 9/11 Memorial and Memorial Museum, as well as the Performing Arts Center, to be built within and proximate to the footprints of the Twin Towers. In response to Community Board 1 input, LMDC began discussions with the Port Authority about the possibility of allowing for a residential development at Site 5. In 2019, LMDC and the Port Authority entered into another memorandum of understanding to jointly issue an RFP for Site 5 that would allow for as-of-right commercial development or mixed-use development, including a requirement for an affordable housing component, which would require a modification to the general project plan. In early 2021, after a competitive RFP process, a mixed-use project and a development team of Silverstein Properties, Brookfield Properties, the Bar Development, and Omni New York was conditionally designated by the LMDC directors. Since conditional designation, approximately 16 months ago, a Community Advisory Committee, CAC, was established, and ESD and LMDC staff have made presentations to Community Board 1 and met with stakeholders, including the city, the Affordable Housing Coalition, and local elected officials. The World Trade Center Site 5 project was first presented to the ESD directors in November 2021 for consideration of the modifications to the World Trade Center General Project Plan. In April, after a public hearing, which was held in January, and a public comment period, which was open through mid-February, the directors adopted the General Project Plan with modifications to allow for mixed-use development in addition to the already approved commercial use of the site. Today's action relates to the start of the public review process for the real estate transactions and zoning overrides for the proposed project. No final determinations or approvals are being made today and the project team is committed to continued public engagement through this process. As described in the materials, if the proposed project and the real estate transactions are approved, ESD would acquire the site from its subsidiary, LMDC, and then enter into a long-term 99-year lease with the conditionally designated development team. Per the Memorandum of Understanding about the exchange of properties I described earlier, the Port Authority would receive the value of the site in the form of rent paid under the lease and title to the site at the end of the lease term. During construction of the proposed project, the annual base rent would be $1,345,000, and after construction, the annual base rent steps up to the greater of 21% of the cash flow before debt service, or a minimum base rent of $12.5 million. If the annual rental income under the lease exceeds the value of the originally planned commercial use of Site 5, the excess revenue will be shared, with 75% going to LMDC and 25% going to the Port Authority. The proposed project would be subject to a payment in lieu of taxes, a pilot agreement that would require the tenant to make payments to the city equivalent to real estate taxes applicable to the property if ESD were not owner of the site, reduced by the equivalent value of the Affordable Housing Benefit Program. The proposed project is a development of office space, retail, a community facility, connection to Liberty Park, and approximately 1,200 residential units, of which at least a minimum 25%, or approximately 300 units, will be permanently affordable and leased to households making at or below an average of 50% of area median income, which is approximately $42,000 a year for an individual or $60,000 for a household of 4. The affordable housing requirements would be governed by a regulatory agreement to be administered by New York State's Affordable Housing Agency, Homes and Community Renewal. There have been significant public discussions about and attention to the project's affordability requirements. Community representatives and elected officials have called for increased affordable housing, including some demands that the project be 100% affordable. I'd like to reiterate that the action before you today is the start of the process for the proposed project, which provides for a minimum of 25% of permanently affordable housing units at the project, but does not preclude increasing the affordability threshold through this process. The project team has shared with stakeholders the valuation of the site, which is $249 million, the total development cost of approximately $1.2 billion, and the cash subsidy needed to increase the affordable unit count at the project, ranging from approximately $415 million for an increase to 40% affordable, and to over $900 million or 100% affordable tower. The project team is committed to continued public engagement throughout this process, including discussions with the Community Advisory Committee, Community Board 1, local elected officials, the 100% Affordable World Trade Center Site 5 Coalition, and other stakeholders. Since the materials for today's actions have been made public, project teams received a number of questions and concerns specifically related to how the initial agreement is described. Please note that we've modified the resolutions to further clarify that this is the start of the public review process. None of the documents described will be executed without final approvals from the directors. The board materials will be updated and have been updated for the corporate records to reflect this modified resolution. With the requested action, the directors will authorize a public hearing and comment period to allow members of the public to make comments on the proposed project, the proposed amendment to the general project plan, the proposed dispositions and acquisitions of property, and to respond to the materials presented as part of today's meeting. The documents described in the materials cannot be executed until final approvals from the directors after the required public hearing and comment period. We expect that the public hearing will be held in the fall. The public hearing notice with all of the pertinent details will be issued in a newspaper, posted on ESD's website as well as LMDC's website, and distributed to the local community board, local elected officials, and key stakeholders. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions on the project.
Well, thank you, Toby. I'll just remind everybody, if you're not speaking, to make sure your audio is muted, and when you are speaking, to unmute it. Toby, that was quite a mouthful on top of the voluminous materials that were shared with the board, and the summaries of everything you shared with us were, very well done and prepared. I have one question and then a comment, but I'll save the comment for after the directors ask their questions. If I read the materials right, the Port Authority is going to receive the rents from this project. And if ESD is the landlord, how come we don't get the rent, and how come Port Authority gets the rent? Can you just explain that to us?
Sure, that's a good question, Chairman Law. So during my script, I'd mentioned a memorandum of understanding between LMDC, ESD subsidiary, and the Port Authority, by which the port, in essence, gave up a significant amount of land that it owned at the center of the World Trade Center campus to allow for the 9/11 Museum and Memorial to be built on the footprints of where the Twin Towers were. So it added for more significant value for the placement of the museum and memorial. So the port gave up rights to those sites to allow for that development. And the agreement, the MOU, was that the port would have the financial interest for the development at Site 5. Under the approved general project plan, if the tower were built as a commercial development, then the port would have been able to serve as landlord and receive all of the rent and financial interest there. However, given the proposed mixed-use development, ESD is stepping in as landlord for the mixed-use site and will be sending the rent payments directly to the Port Authority. So the port has the financial interest for the site stemming from the MOU that was executed with the LMDC for the development of the museum and memorial sites.
Got it. So we're sort of like the conduit for those payments to Port Authority.
That's correct.
Understood. Thank you for that clarification. Do any directors, other directors, have any comments or questions? All right. We received approximately 7 comments from the public with regard to this item, which were shared with us and have been posted on the ESD website page. And Toby, as I said, you're asking us to approve a lot of things. I've taken notes. I'm just going to summarize what we're about to vote on, and please tell me if this is accurate. So first, we're going to affirm the previous findings that this board has made related to this project. We're amending the GPP, voting to override the local zoning regulations, which just, like we often do. We're adopting essential terms of the lease and amendments and the project documents. We're authorized in the commencement of the public hearings and the community comment period. We're authorizing acquisition and disposition of real property and leases pursuant to the Urban Development Corporation Act between LMDC and ESD. And we're authorizing ESD staff to, take any actions related to all of the above. Is that an accurate summary, and am I missing anything?
Thank you, Chairman Law, for that summary. I'd like to note that these actions are the start of the public review process. So all of the documents and agreements that are referenced in the materials will not be executed until after we've gone through the public review process and we come back to the directors for final approval after the public hearing and after the public comment period. So the next step after this authorization would be that we'd issue notice to the public and then have the public hearing and then the comment period and come back for approval for all of the actions that you just summarized.
Great. And so again, as you said, this is the start of the public process. And this board will get another bite at the apple once all of the legwork is done between now and the fall. So with that understanding, I will move this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Are there any, well, I mentioned there were 7 comments from the public. So are there any abstentions or no votes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, again, no abstentions or no votes. This motion is approved. Toby, thank you very much for you and your staff and the very thorough job you did on this, very exciting project.
Thank you, Chairman Law.
Okay, so that motion carries. Our next item on the agenda is 7A, which relates to the Pennsylvania Station Area Civic and Land Use Improvement Project, and will be presented by Gabriella Green, who is our Vice President and Executive Director of the project.
Good morning, Chairman.
Yep, and before Gabriella begins, I'm sorry, I'd like to state again for the record that we received approximately 110 comments from the public on this agenda item, and they were provided to the directors and posted online to this meeting's ESD website, with the majority of those letters in support of the project. Gabriella, please proceed.
Good morning, Chairman Law, Commissioner Knight, and directors. For the Pennsylvania Station Area Civic and Land Use Improvement Project, the directors are being asked to adopt findings pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SEQRA, after consideration of the final environmental impact statement for the project, or FEIS, and the SEQRA finding statement in the materials provided to the directors, to adopt statutorily required findings for the project pursuant to Section 10 of the New York State Urban Development Corporation Act after consideration of the FEIS and the Modified General Project Plan in the materials provided to the directors, to affirm the Modified General Project Plan as set forth in the materials provided to the directors, to authorize an agreement with the City of New York regarding the project based on the essential terms in the materials provided to the directors, and to authorize a subsidiary pursuant to the UDC Act Section 12 and provide an authorization to take all related actions to implement the project. In the last meeting on this project on June 30th, at which the directors accepted the FEIS as complete, I presented a summary of the feedback we received on the DEIS and GPP during the year-long public comment period, which included 2 public hearings, described our ongoing community outreach efforts, which have resulted in significant changes to the GPP, and gave an overview of those changes. In addition, although not required, we accepted public comment on the FEIS following the FEIS's completion and acceptance by ESD's directors last month until noon on July 11th. Enclosed in your materials today is a summary of the comments on the FEIS received during that period and ESD staff's responses to those comments. To recap our process to date, in July 2020, we issued a draft scope of work for the project's EIS, held a public hearing on that scope on July 20th, 2020, followed by a 30-day public comment period, and issued the final scope in December 2020, which added housing options to the project as a result of public input. On February 18th, 2021, the directors accepted a DEIS for the project, adopted the initial GPP, and authorized a public hearing to receive comments on both documents. In April 2021, at the request of local elected officials and community boards 4 and 5, ESD commenced intensive community engagement that went through last fall and resulted in a set of recommendations that were submitted to ESD by the project's Community Advisory Committee Working Group, or CACWAG. ESD released extensive proposed revisions to the GPP in November 2021. On December 8th, 2021 and January 20th, 2022, ESD held public hearings on the adopted GPP, the DEIS, and the proposed revisions. The comment period for the GPP and the DEIS was kept open for over a year, from February 2021 to February 2022. During this time, ESD also participated in multiple town halls and other meetings with the CACWAG and met with other interested parties, government and elected officials, and community, nonprofit, and business organizations. In total, we have done extensive outreach for over 2 years, including holding 21 Community Advisory Committee and Working Group meetings, including one this week to preview the modified GPP and the pilot terms agreed upon with the city. The CACWAG includes all local elected officials, community boards, and other local representatives, and advocates with relevant technical expertise. We've participated in dozens of additional public hearings, town halls, and meetings with elected officials, community boards, and other stakeholders. We have done the comment period for the GPP and the DEIS was kept open for over a year. We now request that the ESD directors adopt secret findings and UDC Act findings and affirm the modified GPP, which includes the proposed revisions that are summarized in pages 3 to 6 of the director's memorandum. In addition, we are requesting that the directors authorize ESD to enter into a pilot agreement with the city based on the terms of the letter of mutual understanding described in the director's materials, and authorize ESD to form a subsidiary to oversee governance of the public realm components of the project. As a result of these meetings and this process, the general project plan that we are presenting to the directors for affirmation has been modified to reflect meaningful changes to the project based on public input. We reduced overall density by 1.4 million gross square feet, the equivalent of one super tall building. We are now requiring housing on 2 sites totaling 322 permanently affordable apartments plus 108 supportive housing units. In addition, the GPP allows for more housing on 2 additional sites, for a total of nearly 1,800 apartments across 4 sites, 540 of which would be permanently affordable. Separate from this GPP, we have also committed to providing an additional 60 supportive housing units through an RFP for the Bayview Correctional Facility, which is outside the project area but within Community District 4. We increased public space requirements, resulting in nearly 8 acres of new public and open space, including pedestrian-friendly shared streets, widened sidewalks, and more circulation space, and a major new public gathering space similar in size to Rockefeller Plaza. In addition, the governor recently announced the creation of a public realm task force that will consist of elected officials, state and city governmental agencies, the railroads, community members, and private property owners to develop a public realm concept plan that will prioritize public realm improvements that will be funded by GPP revenues. Pending your approval, an ESD subsidiary development corporation comprising state and city designees will be formed to oversee implementation of the public realm improvements. The GPP also requires a major community facility space on 1 site and will provide for the relocation of a drop-in center to a larger space if desired. The design guidelines in the modified GPP significantly increase green building and sustainability requirements, mandating that all buildings are built to be fully electric and meet or exceed LEED Gold or equivalent standards. The revised design guidelines also protect the sightlines of the Empire State Building, decrease the size and number of office lobbies in exchange for more small retail spaces and active street fronts, and made numerous other changes to ensure a lively and less congested pedestrian experience. These changes are on top of the many transit improvements the plan requires, most notably 18 new entrances into Penn Station and the 3 surrounding subway stations, which will be built into every new building to help reduce pedestrian congestion and improve the passenger experience, as well as the experience of every New Yorker who walks or bikes or drives through this area. Site 4, described in the GPP, is currently subject to the general project plan for the Moynihan Station Civic and Land Use Improvement Project, and in furtherance of this project, the directors are requested to subject Site 4 to this project's GPP instead of the Moynihan GPP. Regarding the business terms, the project provides that ESD will enter development agreements with private parties for each development site, laying out the financial terms and required public benefits, among other terms, that will allow them to build new, modern, environmentally friendly office and residential buildings. ESD will hold public hearings on these agreements, and we will come back to the directors for approval of those agreements at the time they are negotiated, prior to construction commencing on any site. Revenues that ESD will receive as a result of these development agreements, including from the sale of additional development rights and payments in lieu of taxes, or pilots, generated by the new buildings, will be committed entirely to helping fund Penn reconstruction and potential expansion and other neighborhood, public realm, and transit improvements. Before the directors today is a request to authorize ESD to enter an agreement with the City of New York based on the terms of a non-binding letter of mutual understanding. In this letter, the state, city, and ESD have agreed that after the state makes the city whole for current taxes on the GPP sites to be adjusted annually, any incremental pilot from the new buildings can be used to pay 100% of the total cost of the public realm improvements, 50% of the total cost of the transit improvements, and 12.5% of the cost of Penn reconstruction and potential Penn expansion. You'll note that the allowable percentage for Penn reconstruction and potential expansion is quite a bit lower than the other improvements. This is because we anticipate these projects will receive at least 50% of their funding from the federal government, and that the state of New Jersey and state of New York will split the other 50% of project costs evenly, each paying a quarter of the total. Our agreement with the city proposes an equal split of the projected New York State share of project costs between pilot revenue from the development sites and other state sources, including other GPP-generated revenues, at 12.5% each. Additional key aspects of this agreement are, as mentioned, the city will be made whole for current property taxes on every site with a 3% escalation each year, so there's no loss to its tax base. The maximum term for each pilot agreement will be 40 years or 45 if necessary to meet the terms of a specific financing program. After the term is up, or sooner if the public projects are fully funded faster, each site will return to paying full taxes to the city. No more than 80 years after the first building comes off the city's tax rolls as part of a pilot agreement to help fund the public projects, all buildings must revert to paying full taxes to the city. And since the new buildings will be larger and have higher assessed values, the city will ultimately reap far greater taxes from these sites than today. While there are no current agreements with private owners or developers to provide property tax abatements on any site in the project area, ESD agreed that no property will receive a tax abatement greater than that available in the Hudson Yards financing district at the time that each development agreement is executed. Currently, the highest abatement in the Hudson Yards financing district is 20%, and this will decrease over time. In any year that pilot revenues exceed what is needed to pay debt service for the public projects and make the city whole for current taxes, 35% of the excess would go to paying off any outstanding loans or bonds faster, and the other 65% could be used to reimburse the state for any financing or other costs it may have to front. As mentioned earlier, ESD will form a development corporation, authorization for which is before the directors today, to jointly oversee the public realm improvements. Some additional terms in the letter of mutual agreement apply to the state, but not ESD specifically, and those will not be included in the pilot agreement we are seeking authorization to enter. To summarize the comments we received on the FEIS, ESD received 50 submissions on the FEIS, all of which you received prior to this meeting. The comments include 24 unique letters and emails and 26 form letters. 38 submissions were in favor of the project and expressed general support. The remaining 12 submissions included 78 comments on the FEIS, 62 of which repeat comments that were previously received on the DEIS and were responded to in the response to comments chapter of the FEIS, which you received last month. The 16 new comments on the FEIS were primarily about the project description, alternatives, mitigation, and unavoidable impacts. We issued a memo in response to these new comments that is attached to the Director's Memorandum as Exhibit 3 and posted on the ESD website. Finally, to reiterate the actions that we are requesting from the directors today, we are requesting that the directors adopt findings pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, adopt findings pursuant to Section 10 of the Urban Development Corporation Act, affirm the modified general project plan, authorize the corporation to enter into the pilot agreement with the City of New York, authorize the corporation to establish a subsidiary pursuant to UDC Act Section 12, authorize that Site 4 be removed from the Moynihan GPP and subjected to this project's GPP, and authorize related actions. If the directors approve the terms of the pilot agreement, the terms will also be presented to the Public Authorities Control Board this month for approval. Thank you, and I, along with Holly Light, am happy to answer your questions.
Well, thank you, Gabriella, and the whole team that has been working on this project for a couple of years now. You've also shared with the board members voluminous amounts of documents over the last, few weeks, and thank you for that. They were all done and very well prepared. So thank you for that. I have several questions, and but I'd just like to make a comment and an observation first. I think the amendments that Governor Hochul made to this project were terrific and really enhanced the public realm aspects of this project. And I think creating a really neat transit-oriented development around the most important transportation hub in the metropolitan area. So that is very exciting. But I feel like something gets lost with with all of the media reports about this project. And I know you guys have had so many different public participation meetings, but this is also a terrific project for the entire metropolitan region and the state of New York. It's going to create this another pot of money for the Penn Station reconstruction. And that's not only going to benefit folks in New York City, it's going to bring tremendous benefits to people on Long Island, where I live. It's going to bring tremendous benefits to folks in Westchester and Lower Hudson Valley who use Metro North, and will now be able to come into Penn Station. It's going to create great opportunities for folks in the Bronx who are getting 4 new train stations, and they're going to benefit from being able to come into Penn Station, and as well as our friends in New Jersey who commute into the city and spend a lot of money on all our small businesses in New York City. So this project has not only great benefits for the city of New York, but certainly the entire metropolitan region. So it's very exciting. But I do have a couple of questions, because when I go out and people approach me, I get asked a couple of questions, and I do my best to answer them, but I'm sure Hope, you and your team could answer them better. And since I got the questions, I'm sure others may get similar questions. And so Hope, I'll throw the first one to you, and if you want to defer to your team, that's fine. But one of the questions I get often is, why do we have to do this project now? Why does the board have to approve this now when all these other steps need to be taken still?
I'm going to throw this question to Holly.
Okay,
Thanks.
Thank you, and good morning, directors. The timing of this, and this is really being driven by our partners in the railroads, there will be a unique moment in 2 ways. One is the availability of federal funding at levels that haven't been seen at least in decades, if ever. And we have a very small window to claim our part of that new pot of money. And the way that money gets applied for is to have a viable plan for the local share of the money. The feds don't give grants without the locals, and in this case, that would be the state of New York and state of New Jersey, making their own significant contribution. So value capture framework, which is what Gabriella described, using some of the real estate revenues to help pay for this, that is something that has been tried and true on large infrastructure projects nationwide, including here at Hudson Yards, at Moynihan, and others. This is something the FRA is very familiar with, and so when we're going this fall or early next year to apply for those funds, this is how we're proving that we can pay our local share. It's much more predictable and certain than navigating the annual budget process at the legislature. So it's a very important component, and the time is now for us to be applying for that money.
The second issue is you referred to the new stations in the Bronx that are coming online and East Side Access. There's a window that the railroads have where East Side Access is going to divert some trains that currently go into Penn over to Grand Central. That window between that moment and when additional trains are coming in, when the 4 new stations in the Bronx are built, will be the lowest time for capacity at Penn. That's a moment when it'll be easiest to take some tracks offline because not as many trains are coming in, and they'll be able to do this work with minimal disruptions. And that, again, is a very short window.
Got it. That was very, very helpful, Holly. Thank you for that. Another question I get, Holly, I'll ask this to you as well. And I'm sure you've gotten this at the public meetings, and that is there really a need for more office space in Manhattan, given the fact that COVID has encouraged a lot of people to work remotely? So what is our response to that question we often get?
So, like all of us, we have been reading the tea leaves and assessing all the data that's coming out. It's certainly a volatile moment right now. However, what we are seeing in the trends is what has been called a flight to quality. There is still very strong demand for new Class A office space. Companies are looking to configure their office space differently to accommodate both post-COVID protocols and also to accommodate just a different, more flexible way of working. So in both Hudson Yards, in the East Midtown, we are seeing still strong demand for new Class A office space. The next question obviously would be, okay, so are you cannibalizing Class B and C office space? I think to some degree, the efforts that have been made, including through legislation that's been passed to make it easier to convert some of those buildings to residential and other uses, is going to have to be a priority that goes hand in hand with the demand for the new Class A office space. So, we're working closely with the city. The state has been a big champion of helping make conversions possible. We saw this done very successfully in Lower Manhattan after 9/11, where a lot of the Class B and C historic buildings and other office buildings were converted downtown successfully to residential. We think that that's definitely going to be a trend, and the data that we've seen, including the most recent Moody's analysis, supports that as well. And I think the other thing I would say, Chairman Law, is that this is not a 5-year plan by any means. We're looking at pilot agreements that can go out for 80 years. We're looking for multiple decades of build out for all of these buildings. So as we have seen, and I think we all believe, you don't bet against the future of New York City. This is a place where people will want to be, and we think for the long term, there is no question that we will be able to absorb this office space.
Great. Thanks for that. And I agree with those comments. So, thanks for sharing those so eloquently, Holly. 2 more questions, and I'll be brief, and I'll open it up to any of the others. The other comment I often get is that this project won't generate enough money to do all of the Penn Station reconstruction. But it was my understanding that was never supposed to be the case, that this project would generate some of the monies for the Penn State reconstruction, but it was not ever envisioned to generate all the monies for Penn Station reconstruction. Is that accurate?
That is correct. We have never said in this project that this could solve all of this. This is one of, if not the most expensive infrastructure project that has been taken on in the state. So this is one source, but it is not the only source. And we believe that there's a very viable plan that we've been working on for multiple years to create in the billions of dollars out of the real estate revenues. But as is indicated by the fact that the legislature appropriated $1.3 billion for the transportation parts of the Penn plan, there is recognition that other sources will be necessary.
Got it. Good. Thanks for that clarification. And my last question, something else that we've all gotten questions on, is the framework of the pilot agreements between the state, the ESD, and the city of New York. Can you or Gabriella just walk us through that 12.5% bucket that is going to be used for Penn Station reconstruction, and clarify that? Does that mean they're getting 12% of the monies, or and because the numbers to me didn't add up. If 100% was going for the public realm, then how is there more money to go for other things? Can somebody just clarify those three buckets of public realm, transit improvements, and then Penn Station reconstruction?
Sure. So in our conversations with the city, the way that they viewed pilot was that those that have fewer other partners and fewer other sources, and in which and the projects in which the city would be most invested in, would get the highest percentage of pilot toward their cost. So public realm, this is primarily New York City streets and sidewalks. So the city was agreeable to have 100% of the costs of those public realm projects paid with pilot. Similarly, on the subway improvements and the below ground pedestrian network, this is going to primarily also benefit a lot of New York City residents, and we don't have other partners in those costs, so they agreed to split those 50-50 with us. On the Penn reconstruction and potential expansion, we have other partners. Most notably, the federal government, that, as Gabriella said, we believe will fund at least 50% of those projects based on the model of the Gateway Agreement that is binding, and that has a 50% federal, 25% New Jersey, 25% New York share. We're using that as the model for these other projects. So we are presuming 50% from the federal government at least, although the railroads are certainly trying to get more funds from the feds for that share. 25% for New Jersey. So New York is looking at a 25% share. Basically what the city said is we are willing to split the 25% New York share 50-50. So that's where the 12.5% was derived from.
Got it. Thank you. Thanks for that clarification. And sorry, directors, for hogging the floor. I'm done with my questions. Do any other directors have any other questions for Holly or Gabriella?
Just one question from me, and I apologize if this is somewhat duplicative, Chair, of things that you just were asking, but could you please discuss a little bit about whether, and if so, to what extent, or why not, this projected redevelopment would cannibalize some of the recent work done at Hudson Yards and other sites around the city?
Sure. We do not think that this would cannibalize the work at Hudson Yards or East Midtown or similar new office space that's going up. We've been, following and doing analysis, looking at data, Moody's data. We do believe that in the long build-out term of this project and those projects, there will be full absorption for all of that new office space that's coming online. And again, we're talking decades, not years.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. All right, so not hearing any more questions. Gabrielle, I'm going to try to do what I did with the World Trade Center site and just summarize what we're voting on. We're going to adopt the secret finding statements, the final secret finding statements, as well as adoption of the UDC Act findings. And we are affirming the GPP. We are approving the financial framework of the memorandum between the City of New York and ESD regarding the pilot payments. And we're authorizing the creation of a subsidiary to manage the public realm projects that'll have composition from both the state and the city. And the swap of the Moynihan Hall section of the project into this GPP. Do I have that correct, or am I missing anything?
That is correct.
Very good. So I will move this motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any no votes or abstentions? And I previously noted twice that we received, 110 public comments that have been shared with the directors and with posted on our website. And so this motion carries. And again, I want to thank the staff. I know this is a big project, and the volume of paperwork that you sent to all the board members is indicative of the amount of time, commitment, and energy that I hope you and your team have put into this project. So very well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, so board members, we now go to the administrative action items on the agenda. We have about a dozen or so of them, but the good news is we could take them all up in one omnibus resolution at the end. And so I am going to hand things over to Doug Janice, who is our senior counsel in our legal department, who will provide a brief summary of the administrative action. And before I call the vote on actually 13 items, not 12. So Doug, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, directors. As the chairman just reminded you, in order to help streamline our board meetings, we previously implemented an oral summary presentation process in connection with these administrative actions. So you receive a full set of the written descriptive materials for each of these items, as you have for this meeting. And rather than having individual presentations on each, I'm going to provide you a brief summary of the items. At the conclusion of that summary, we'll then entertain any comments or questions that you have. And as noted earlier, we didn't receive any comments from the public on any of these items. So following my presentation and any questions, the chairman will call for a motion to approve the entire slate of actions, which are 8A through 8M, 13 items in total.
Right.
So the administrative action items submitted for your consideration today and for which you received the written materials are summarized as follows. Item 8A is relative to the authorization to enter into a memorandum of understanding related to the regional revitalization strategy. The board is being asked to approve a memorandum of understanding to implement the regional revitalization strategy, which is a $300 million public-private partnership that will invest in traditionally disadvantaged communities in the cities of Buffalo, Niagara Falls, and Rochester. Of the $300 million, $200 million will be invested by the state, with the rest coming from local communities and philanthropic organizations, including a $67 million commitment from the Ralph Wilson Foundation. I want to note that no specific project is being approved with this authorization. Rather, individual projects funded through this initiative will be approved by the board at a later date. Item 8B is relative to the authorization to enter into a contract to provide legal services in connection with the Buffalo Bills Stadium project and to take related actions. The board is being asked to approve a contract with Sidley Austin LLP in the amount of $500,000 to provide legal services regarding the Buffalo Bills Stadium project, which involves construction of a new stadium for the Buffalo Bills NFL franchise, which will be funded in part by a $600 million commitment from New York State. The firm is being retained specifically for the services of Mr. Irwin Rye, a partner with the firm who is leading the negotiations for New York State. Mr. Rye was previously with the firm of O'Melveny and Myers LLP, which was retained by ESD in September of 2021. Mr. Rye has left the O'Melveny firm, and ESD is seeking to contract with his new firm to retain his services for the project.
So for that one, it's the same attorney, different jersey, right?
Yes, correct. He's been our lead negotiator, in terms of legal strategy for the last almost a year now, and he switched firms, so we want to retain him. So we're going to contract with his new firm.
Got it. Thank you.
For item 8C, it's relevant to the procurement of event management vendor services for the 2022 New York State MWBE Forum and authorization to enter into the contract and take related actions. Board is requested to authorize a contract with Immersive Strategies LLC for project management services, including event planning, development, marketing, registration, and execution of the 2022 New York State MWPE Forum, for a contract total of $442,711.25. The forum, which will be a 2-day hybrid conference on Tuesday, October 4th and Thursday, October 6th, will include both virtual and live sessions and events. The consultant will be responsible for hiring vendors and service providers as necessary to execute the event, for fulfilling a 30% MWBE and 6% SDVOB participation goal, as well as securing speakers and sponsors, planning virtual and live content, creating the event space, advertising and marketing the event, and providing post-event amplification. Our next item is 8D, relative to the procurement of a developer for the database of economic incentives, which is an authorization to enter a contract with Knowledge Builders, Inc. Empire State Development's IT department is requesting board approval to amend its current $500,000 contract with Knowledge Builders, Inc., adding an additional $112,750 for a new contract total of $612,750. This amendment is required to cover an additional scope of services to expand the existing Economic Initiatives database to include additional state agency economic development projects as part of the fiscal year 2023 enacted New York State budget directives. In addition to increasing the contract amount, the contract term would be expanded by 1 year. Knowledge Builders has provided excellent work based on the initial contract scope. They have demonstrated technical capacity and expertise and developed an efficient database on time and on budget. The next 3 items are 8E, F, and G. They are some very similar authorizations to enter into contracts for consultant services with 3 different consultants to provide stakeholder engagement, business and labor market data assessment, and the creation of sector-based workforce development strategy plans for various regions of the state as part of Empire State Development's establishment of the new Office of Strategic Workforce Development. Each of the contracts is anticipated to be a 3-month engagement, and they are as follows. Item 8E will authorize the retention of BJH Advisors, LLC for the Mid-Hudson and New York City REDCs at a cost not to exceed $299,650. Item 8F will authorize the retention of Camoyan Associates, Inc. for the Capitol, Finger Lakes, Mohawk Valley, and North Country REDCs at a cost not to exceed $573,168. And item 8G will authorize the retention of Ernst & Young LLP for the Southern Tier, Central New York, Western New York, and Long Island REDCs. They cost not to exceed $600,000. So those 3 items are all identical except for the various regions that each one represents and the dollar amount. All of the other terms and conditions are the same.
Got it.
Item 8H is relative to the relocation or renewal of office space lease at 633 3rd Street in New York City, and it's an authorization to enter into a contract for real estate brokerage services. This is a request for ESD to enter into a 1-year brokerage agreement with a 6-month option to renew with Newmark and Company Real Estate Services for its support in future leasing negotiations, specifically regarding the renewal of ESD's New York City office lease with its landlord or potential relocation of that space, as well as ESD's needs for additional temporary office space. Item 8.
Doug, on that one, normally, at least the deals I've been involved with, whether we decide to stay in the building we're in or we move to a new building, the landlord will pick up the broker's fee. Is that the case here?
Yes, this is Ashley. That is the case.
That is the case. Thank you for confirming that.
It will be 0 cost to ESD.
Good. Thank you. Continue, Doug.
Item 8I is it's an authorization to enter into a contract with third-party grant administrator services for the COVID-19 capital cost tax credit program. ESD is seeking to enter into a contract not to exceed $3.5 million with Live Stories, a third-party tax credit administrator for the $250 million COVID-19 capital cost tax credit program. Live Stories will use a cloud-based application portal to review and process the applications, vet the applicants per eligibility criteria provided by ESD, and issue tax credits in an equitable and fair manner based upon the eligibility criteria in statute and regulations, with enhanced security and algorithms to reduce program costs and maximize the tax credits issued to eligible small businesses. Item 8J is relative to the authorization to enter into a contract for marketing promotion services for the New York State Apple industry. The board is being asked to authorize ESD to enter into a contract with New York's Apple Association, Inc. to provide marketing and promotion of the New York State Apple industry. This is a one-year contract in an amount not to exceed $1,950,000. And the funds will be used to conduct a variety of marketing endeavors that promote New York's robust Apple industry. Item 8K is an authorization to enter into a contract with Cornell University for research and development services for the New York State Apple industry and to take related actions. The board is being asked to authorize ESD to enter into a contract with Cornell University to provide research and development services for the New York State Apple industry. This is a one-year contract in an amount not to exceed $363,542. And the funds will be used to conduct various research projects related to weed control, nutrient balance, and blight management that impact New York's apple crops on an annual basis. The final two items are 8L and 8M. They are relative to short-term contract extensions, one for property management services and one for brokerage services related to the 10 North Pearl Street sale that the board approved at its meeting last month. So 8L is for the property management services. CBRE has been performing those services, and their contract is due to expire, and we need to extend that for a short term through the end of July. The total value of the contract is below $30,000, but because the total length of the contract exceeds 1 year, the board must approve that particular amendment. And then item 8M is very similar. Again, the contract will be extended through August 1st, 2022, which will exceed the 1 year duration. However, the total value of the contract is only $60,000. So it's being brought to the board as an amendment solely because it exceeds the 1 year term of the original contract. And with that, I will turn this back over to our chair, who will call for any questions or comments you may have on any of these items before calling for a vote. We also have item-related staff on the line today to assist with answering any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. We do not have any comments from the public with regard to any of these items. Are there any questions or comments from the directors? If not, may I have a motion for approval of items 8A through 8M as submitted on the written materials provided to the directors previously and summarized by Doug today.
So moved.
The second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. That concludes our official business of the day. Do any directors have any other business or comments or questions they'd like to raise at this time? Hearing none, I believe that concludes our meeting for today. So again, Hope, I want to thank you and your team for walking us through all of these items, some of them very significant projects, and the very professional, well done job you did on and your team did on preparing the board for these items with all the materials that you sent to us over the last couple of weeks. So thank you for that. I will move to adjourn. Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you. And our next meeting will be sometime at third week of August, and staff will alert us all to that. In the meantime, stay cool and enjoy the summer. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.